Okay, compressors, as we've learned, are effect processors that tame the peaks of your signal, or in technobabble, they actually reduce the dynamic range. That's the range between the quietest parts of your signal and the loudest parts of your signal. Now, you can do this to fix problems like maybe a slapped bass guitar that you can't fit in the mix because of all those peaks, or you can creatively shape your vocal to bring up the breathiness. No matter which way you cut it, your compressor is going to be doing these two things over and over again. Number one, it's going to be detecting your signal, and number two, it's going to be pulling parts of that signal down. Two different sides, detection and gain reduction. Let's see this in the most basic example that I could bring up. Okay, so I'm opening up this sample file. It's in your example files. It's called Sidestick Snare. And I'm going to be working in Pro Tools right now, but I don't want you to be hung up and say, well, I don't use Pro Tools. I'm going to be giving lots of examples in different DAWs so that we can kind of get an idea of how to use compressors really no matter what tools you're using, either in hardware or software. But for this example, we are in Pro Tools, like I said. Now, I brought up an example. This is a massive difference between a sidestick hit and a snare drum hit. And I've set it up in this example just to give you an idea of what you can do in terms of making these guys a little bit more level. You can see the problem, obviously, is that if I place this track in a mix loud enough for these snare hits to come through and not overpower the mix, then I would probably bring this down, but then the side sticks are just going to get completely lost in the mix. So I've really got to reduce the disparity between the side stick and the snare, and let's see how we can do this. So I've placed a compressor on this track, and with it bypassed right now, you can hear differences. Here's the side stick down here, and here's the snare drum way up here, and we want to kind of reduce the disparity between these peaks right here. Now, I kind of alluded to before, there's two different parts of a compressor, and by the way, the way I brought up a compressor, it'll be different on any particular DAW you're working on. But right now in Pro Tools, you just select one of these inserts here, and then you go shopping through all of your different effects, and right here is where you could insert a compressor. I've already done that. It's bypassed at the moment. Let me unbypass that and make it active. So now with the threshold set up way high, what's going to happen is basically nothing. You can see that this is the input of our track, this is the output of our track, and depending on the relationship between the threshold and the ratio, we're going to see a certain amount of gain reduction. So to get us familiarized with compressors, here's what I've done. I've set a very steep ratio here of a 10:1, and I'm going to start pulling down this threshold until we can bring it down so much that it affects these snare drum peaks, but it doesn't affect these side sticks. So let's actually look down here. As we play this track, we'll be able to see that the side stick is around here and the snare drum is about here. So I'm going to drag that threshold down. You'll note that I can drag this threshold down in a few different ways, and you can see that it's affected over here in this graphical interface, and also you can do the same thing down here by pulling down this threshold here. I'm going to actually do it over here because I find that's it's a great visual way, because you're looking at your input here, and I want to set this so that the side sticks don't get affected, but the snare drum hits will. So anyway, enough talking. Let's actually see this in action.